welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
I'm Emma.
This week we're discussing chapter 38, Jamaillia City. Diving in right to, we're speeding ahead a little bit in the timeline.
Yes, we've jumped time. Also, there has been the page before this chapter is a spring page, so we're officially in spring now.
Yes.
So the time has jumped forward, and we have a time card in the middle of it.
We are with Malta, who is in Jamaillia City. They have been there for about a month, as we learned throughout this chapter. And she is looking at opulence. And this is just the sitting room. And everywhere she looks, there's something beautiful and, over the top, gorgeous and decorated.
Right. And I thought it was really interesting because Malta talks about how her fitting room, like you said, it's over the top, but it's this sort of forest scene where there's woods on the wall that turns into a blue sky with butterflies and birds flying around.
Yeah.
Even on the ceiling, and then on the ground, it's like mossy carpet, and there's a water feature. And I found this really interesting because we don't really get that much description of a ton of places in Robin Hobb books, I feel, but we've already been to the Satrap's palace and have not gotten this level of opulence from Cyrilla when we were with her.
Right.
And I find that so interesting and I guess it makes sense because to Cyrilla, it's normal. She's used to it. And then with Malta, this is the most amazing thing she's ever seen. So, Of course, it sticks out more. But I just found that really interesting to think about. Like, we've been talking about how Cyrilla's been complaining about how backwaters Bingtown is and how it's not civilized. And the Bingtown people think they're more civilized than Six Duchies people. Yeah. And then here we have Malta at the Jamaillian capital in her sitting room that is just beautiful and ornate.
Permanently flowing bath of steaming water.
Yes. So I thought it was really fun to have an actual description of the palace.
Yeah. She has some dressing ladies helping her, I think 3 of them, that are doing her makeup and helping her dress for tonight's ball that is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And she is being primped and pampered and has been for the past month, but she is getting tired of this.
Yes, she just sort of wants some alone time. She also mentions that there are 3 women helping her, and they all 3, to some extent, are paying tribute to her changes as a Reyn Wilder.
Yep.
And talks about how one of the girls had shaved her head and wore a fake crest like Malta has.
Mm-hmm.
And then they all had shaved their eyebrows and put paint on to make it look like scales where eyebrows should be.
Yeah, a glistening cosmetic made from flaked mother of pearl and coloring. One had chosen red in Malta's honor. The other's shimmering brows were blue. Malta wondered if this was an effort to flatter Reyn. So yeah, they have been here for a month, so these glistening, scaled people who are held in the highest honor as a satrap's guests are being shown around, and their fashions are catching on now.
Yes, and the fashion is something that, of course, Malta is reveling in. She's wearing, lace gloves that allow her shiny scaled hands and fingers to peek through the gloves, which I guess now some people are mimicking by making gloves that have sewn sparkle patches to give a similar effect.
Yeah.
And then also she talks about how the dress she's going to wear for tonight is white, but there are panels of red tucked into the skirt so that whenever she spins, you'll be able to see the red. But other than that, you can't. And so she's really excited about that. And this is genuinely like best case scenario for Malta, right? She has been dreaming about being this princess, being the center of attention, coming into Jamaillia, being able to waltz around and party to her heart's content and be taken care of by servants. And she gets that. And it's kind of nice, I guess, after all the hardship she went through.
So she dismisses her serving maids here a bit early so they can go and prepare for their own dances. And the smiles that met hers in the mirror told her that she had guessed true, that they were excited to go and maybe meet up with a young man or two. A great ball such as this created excitement through all the levels of the satrap's palace. There would be dancing in no less than 4 separate ballrooms for every level of aristocracy, and Malta knew that the excitement and glitter would extend to celebration in the servants' hall as well. That it was the third such gala in less than a month did not seem to dim anyone's enthusiasm. No one wished to miss the chance to once more glimpse the grave and slender beauty that was the Queen of the Pirate Isles, let alone bypass an opportunity to see the Elderlings dance together. Newly influential advisors and nobles of Jamaillia would once more convene to flatter and exalt the young satrap who had so valiantly set forth to adventure through the wild world and then returned home with such lofty new allies. Tonight would be their last such opportunity. Tomorrow, she and Reyn would sail north on the Vivacia with Wintrow and Queen Etta. Tomorrow, they would finally begin the journey home. Yeah, so slightly less than a month, and they are going to head out of Jamaillia and go home, finally.
Yeah. Yeah. Much to Reyn's, delight, because he's been wanting to get back to digging to find that other city that Tintaglia had said that there might be.
Right.
And he's ready to discover all of that. And doing this whole rigmarole of state and stuff has not been fun for him as much as it has for Malta. But it is really interesting that Malta points out there that it's not just her people want to see, it's also Queen Etta.
Yeah. And she is walking over to Etta's door and taps on the door and lets herself in. Etta, she asked gently of the dimness. In here, the Queen of the Pirate Isles replied. Malta swiftly crossed the darkened chamber and entered Etta's immense dressing chamber. Closets stood open, gowns were strewn on the chairs and the floor, and Etta sat in her undergarments before her mirror. Where are your dressing maids? Malta asked carefully. Wintrow had warned her of Etta's temper. Malta herself had never seen her anger, only the black depths of her sorrow. I sent them away, Etta said brusquely. Their chatter was maddening. Try this scent. Let us pin your hair so. Will you wear the green? Will you wear the blue? Oh, lady, not the black. Not again. Like so many shrieking gulls, all come to feed on my corpse. I sent them away. I see, Malta said gently. And then another door opens and Mother comes out bearing a tray of steaming mugs and tea.
I think it's really interesting to see this sort of change in relationship, I guess, between Malta and Etta.
Yeah.
I guess Malta really didn't get to know Etta very much. So before anything happened, before the whole war, the mini war,
brought on board and for a night, and then Etta was sent away.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Etta was sent away before Malta got on board.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. So they didn't really get to see each other around Kennet, I guess. But yeah, it's really interesting to see now that there is a lot of care going into how Malta's treating Etta. And I don't know. It just seems like an odd relationship to me. I don't know how it has worked, I guess, because it just...
Yeah, it just seems like we need... Robin Hobb's like, we need them to interact because they're the only two people who would check on each other or who would check on Etta besides Wintrow.
I guess.
I don't know. It just seems like we either missed a lot in that less than a month or they came to rely on each other because they're the only two women foreigners that are there.
I don't know, because Malta technically would be more apt to be able to get into this sort of revelry because she's a trader's daughter, so she was raised to know what was going on, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really know. And I guess, to be fair, they had a couple... They've only been in Jamaillia for less than a month, but they had to take a couple weeks to get to Jamaillia, so on the same ship. So maybe that's when they bonded. It just feels really weird because, I don't know, Malta's neither judging Etta or sort of thinking too hard about the relationship with Etta. She just sort of is like, oh, this poor sad woman who's
Right.
mourning the death of a loved one. Like, I don't see what she saw in him, but
Yeah.
whatever. And it just feels not like Malta, the way that they talk and interact. And it doesn't feel like Etta either, which I don't know. It seems odd that she would just,
I think it kind of feels like Etta, but yeah, I don't know. Less so Malta. I see that one, but
yeah. I guess it doesn't feel like Etta to me as much because where is that temper? Where is the like brandishing a weapon around, being like,
that
I'm
grief.
mad?
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, I mean, she's going through grief and grief does different things to every person. It just, I don't know, feels really subdued for Etta, I guess.
Yeah. So we learned that Mother could have had equally opulent rooms, but she's decided to stay close to Etta and basically waits on her hand and foot. And while Malta reflects and says that would be so infuriating to me, Etta seems to take kind of some comfort from Mother's closeness. She shared Etta's chamber and waited on her at every opportunity. Malta thought that the constant attention would chafe on her, but Etta seemed to take comfort in it. The Queen of the Pirate Isles set down her cup, and then she says, basically to herself, I will wear the black again. But there was only sadness in her voice now, no anger or bitterness. With a sigh, she turned back to her mirror. Malta found the black dress and shook out its simple lines. Etta wore it to mourn Kennet, just as the only jewelry she wore was the little miniature of him strapped to her wrist and the earrings he had given her. She seemed unaware that the tragic simplicity of her garb and demeanor had captured the dramatic interest of every poet in Jamaillia. So she's in depths of her grief still, like we talked about last chapter as well, and does cry, and Mother turns or gives a look to Malta, and they both kind of turn away and busy themselves elsewhere in the room.
Well, she cries because the scent that Mother puts on her is lavender, and
Yeah.
Kenneth loved lavender, and that
Mhm.
sets her to crying. And it's just the little memories of him everywhere.
Yeah. Eventually, Etta lifts up her head again and says, I suppose I must get dressed. I suppose I must be the queen again tonight. Wintrow and Reyn will be waiting for us, Malta agreed. Sometimes, Etta confided as Malta fastened the endless row of tiny buttons up her back, when I am most discouraged, if I take a moment to myself, I swear I can hear him speaking to me. He bids me be strong for the sake of the son I carry. Mother gabbled soft agreement. Etta spoke on softly, almost dreamily. At night, just before I fall asleep, I often hear his voice. He speaks to me, words of love, poetry, good counsel, and encouragement. I swear it is all that keeps me from going mad. I feel that in some way the best part of Kennet is still with me, that he will always be with me. Malta easily replies, yeah, I'm sure he will be, and I'm sure he is with you.
Mm-hmm.
And privately, she wondered if she were as blind to Reyn's faults. The Kennet that Etta recalled did not match Malta's recollection at all.
Yeah. Well, we know that the charm is the one talking to Etta at night
Yeah.
and giving her comfort. And so I guess for some reason I thought the charm never talked again after Kenneth's death, but clearly charm is talking away to Etta.
Yeah.
And I also find it interesting that Etta says the best parts of Kenneth are still there because it kind of feels like the Kenneth she loves is the charm of Kenneth.
Right.
Because that's the one that's been like whispering sweet nothings, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Weird dynamic going on.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's our opinion that the charm is being very aware of his own survival depends on him being worn closely at all times. So anything that can help, Kenneth, the heir of Kenneth, become a man, it helps the charm as well. It's a little bit self-serving. But otherwise, we don't really know why the charm would do this.
I think the charm has feelings for Etta. I think that's real.
Yeah. But why care about the sun as much? Just a way to keep Etta alive?
Yeah.
Oh.
You got something else to take care of, I guess. So
I suppose. Etta stands up, and Malta remarks that the pregnancy did not show yet, but everyone knew that she carried King Kenneth's heir. None questioned her right to rule in his stead, just as none questioned the seeming youth of the man who commanded his fleet. In pirate tradition, Wintrow had succeeded to Kenneth's position by a vote of his captains. Malta had heard that it was unanimous.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
That Wintrow won charge of the fleets through the pirate ways that he was trying so hard to fight against at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. He was unanimously accepted into the sailing world in general.
Yeah, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
And good for Wintrow, that he could do that. But of course, it's Malta, so she also has to point out the faults in him, which is that in the clothes that the Jamaillians wear and have dressed him in, he looks really young.
Yeah.
And
unless you look at his eyes.
Yeah, unless you look into his eyes. But other than that, he looks super young because of the clothes he's wearing. They are not helping. And on top of that, he's not very tall.
Yeah. He is wearing black as he always did, although Malta wondered whether that was to mourn Kenneth or just to mark him and Etta as a pair. But yeah, he looks very young, and as Etta and Wintrow kind of get partnered up, she purses her lips after it, and Reyn's like, "What are you thinking about?" And Malta's like, "Well,
I hope my brother grows taller," she murmured.
yeah."
Malta, he rebuked her, but then smiled.
She had to look up at him, and she loved that she did.
Yeah,
okay.
So
don't make fun of a short king there. Come on.
Yeah, what's wrong with being short, Malta?
Then she stares at Reyn for a bit, admiring him and how good he looks in his Jamaillian formal wear. Like Wintrow looked incredibly young, but Reyn is a man.
Really funny because it also is like the craziest outfit description ever. Reyn is wearing a white undershirt and white pants. And then on top of the shirt, the long sleeve white shirt, is a indigo jacket.
Yep, close-fitted
indigo jacket, and with his white pants that match his white shirt, he has black knee-high boots on. What is that outfit? Like, it just, and Malta's like, ooh, dreamy, and I'm like, ugh. I cannot imagine this looking well.
I've seen some like military outfits that maybe it's stylized after. I don't know.
It could be anything, but what I'm picturing...
You don't like the black and blue?
Well, I'm confused as to why he would wear white pants and black and blue.
Yeah.
Like, that feels like pick a color, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Who am I to know of Jamaillian male fashion? But we find out as the group progresses into the party area that the satrap is on the highest dais, and he is smoking some herbs with a few companions around him. And Malta makes a comment that although he seemed to her to go back to all his vices, all of his advisors praised him and talked about how big of a change he's had since coming back from the trip.
She also discusses how seating arrangements for her and Reyn had been discussed endlessly for a long time because while the satrap had grudgingly granted Queen Etta as the same status as him, as a visiting monarch, basically.
Yeah, reigning monarch of a separate kingdom.
Yeah. But Malta and Reyn, they're not claiming that. They don't want to be known as, king and queen of dragons because they're not. In fact, even though Malta repeatedly and quietly asserted that Bingtown was an independent city-state, she's not claiming to be a ruler or a speaker for them either.
Yeah, she's not their representative.
Yep.
Just like Reyn has done the same with the Rainwilds. He's not the representative of the Rainwilds. They are representing Tartaglia's wants.
So Cosgo does stick them on elevated chairs on a garlanded dais, and Malta thinks that is as much of his desire to show them off as it is to respect their would-be titles as representatives or something. But basically, they're the reason that some people are coming.
Right. And she's okay with it because she feels the more important people think she is, the more power she has when bargaining with them.
Exactly. And she has used that bargaining power to secure more trades for Bingtown. With the satrap's strangling monopoly on Bingtown's exports broken, there were many merchants anxious to establish new ties with the trader cities. The current fashion, favor for their exotic appearances, had even motivated a stream of inquiries about trade and settlement possibilities in the Reyn Wilds. Reyn had replied conservatively to these, reminding them that he could not speak for the council. A number of entrepreneurs and adventure seekers had offered to pay high prices to book passage on the Vivacia for her journey homeward. And Wintrow basically said, like, hire on with somebody else. We're not.
Yeah, I'm a pirate ship. This
Yep.
is not going. We're going to the Pirate Isles, not Bingtown.
Exactly. So yeah, they're all kind of, we're getting an update on how things are settling on about almost a month after these treaties have been signed, or at least, almost a month since they've been back in Jamaillia and
Right.
talking about these treaties. So growing interest in the Reyn Wilds, especially considering their appearance and how fashion is going towards their appearance rather than revulsion,
Right. Also, I think really importantly, when we left off with Althea and Brashen, and Althea just said she wanted to be on Paragon, but there was no official decision being made on where everybody was going or how they were going to get there. It was just Tintaglia had come in and said, Vivacia is taking you guys to Jamaillia. I am taking Paragon to the Reyn Wilds. So in this sort of time jump and looking at all the things that have changed and all the people, we also know that Vivacia obviously came here and Paragon most likely went to the Reyn Wilds. And so that's where Althea and Brashen are.
Mm-hmm.
But with Malta, it's really interesting to see that she had to do all of the sort of politicking.
Yes.
And how that has gone.
Yeah, I mean, that was also part of her deal with the satrap, right? She would go
Yes.
to Jamaillia and set up that stuff. So with everything kind of settling the way it is and the renewed interest in trade there and the broken monopoly, Malta had spent some time with one of the lords doing some figures on the potential profits for all these new trade deals. And the figuring seemed to go in the way that it would be even more profitable with the satrap having that broken monopoly and all these new trades being going there and getting these new tariffs on the trade goods that are coming through the docks and all that stuff. So
Right.
Satrap Cosgo is going to make out good anyways.
Right. And not only that, but it could also shock the city out of the downward spiral of stagnation, according to Lord Ferdio, who she's talking with.
Mm-hmm.
So this is pretty big. This is a big change, and it's super beneficial to Cosgo and the economy of Jamaillia, as well as Bingtown's economy. And it's just opening up new jobs, new trade, new opportunities. Not only is the Bingtown trade something that's big, but the Pirate Isles as well, because that offers a safer hub and a place where more trade can happen now from further away. And so there's also the increase of possibility of trade from these other places that before were unreasonable to try to trade with. And now with the Pirate Isles being an ally, it'll be easier to get things.
Yep.
So
so they're also talking about the southern islands going up to Jamaillia and offering those goods to, Pirate Isles, Bingtown, and Chalced and beyond.
Yeah, so things are really looking up. This is apparently a great deal for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Malta reflects a bit on the satrap, and like you said, seems kind of changed maybe, but to her eyes is also going back to all of his old vices. But everyone else insists that, like, oh my gosh, this transformation is massive.
Yeah, this is huge.
So he's still, the satrap Cosgo we all love to hate.
Yes.
Or at least pity. And he is on his dais greeting Malta and Reyn at this gala. Kind of bored, but also wants them to stay longer and is kind of put out that Malta and Reyn want to leave so soon.
Right.
He basically says, you came here and you got all of the stuff that all the profits from all the stuff that we've had, and now you're just going to leave right away.
Right.
And Reyn's like, well, we've already put off our wedding plans once. We can't do it again. And the satrap's like, no, get married here. It's totally fine.
You can come to my special palace and I'll have 50 priests do it. It'll be a big spectacle. In fact, we could do it now if you want.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's not the only thing.
That's not fair to our families. And the satrap's like, oh, come on. It's way better here anyways.
Yeah, he's like, stay, party. And they're like, well, you also gave us other orders, so we should go make sure that those get done.
Yeah, exactly. We also learned that the satrap is sending some pigeons down to Bingtown and some supplies, and has, instructions and notes to send. So Malta and Reyn are carrying all of that. And subsequently, Wintrow is carrying that on Vivacia.
Right.
Wintrow doesn't think very highly of the befouling, smelly pigeons.
Yes, he's not a fan, which is very funny.
Yes. But I would assume that those pigeons are the ones that are in the Rainwild Chronicles, where we have the Keeper of the Birds messages back and forth.
Where they fall in love.
Mm-hmm. So we learned that Malta and Reyn are like, no, sorry, we cannot stay. We are leaving tomorrow.
Yes, and because the Vestrit family has to represent Jamaillia's interests, and it is a duty that Malta takes most seriously, to which the satrap replies, no doubt you will take it most profitably as well.
Yeah.
And then he says, oh, well, if part we must, then I hope it will lead to good fortune for all of us. And then he leans back with his eyes half closed, and Malta interprets that gratefully as a dismissal.
Yes. So they go to their own seats, and she looks around the ballroom and realizes that she wouldn't miss it. Well, not immediately. She had finally been surfeited with parties, dancing, and elegance. She longed for the simplicity of unscheduled days and privacy. Reyn, for his part, chafed to be at the sight of the Elderling city. So then we learn more of what has been going on, because Ophelia has also sailed to Jamaillia City and dropped off some letters and some news.
And the news is heartening and tantalizing. The flow of foodstuffs through Bingtown and up the river was steady and sufficient. The young priest Wintrow had recommended as an engineer had almost mystical knack for simple yet elegant solutions. As soon as the temporary locks of the had permitted the serpents to ladder up the river had been completed, Reyn's brother had turned his attention to searching for the remains in the city, and this Selden had been most helpful to Bendir. As yet, they had not discovered any intact chambers, but Reyn was certain that was due only to his absence. The fervor of his ambition to begin the search amazed Malta.
Yeah. So again, we learn that Reyn truly is, that explorer at heart, wants to be uncovering, even without the promise to Tintaglia. I'm sure he would be doing the same thing.
He just likes finding and tinkering and doing things, which is fun. Also, I'm so curious who the young priest Wintrow knows is.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's somebody from his monastery, right? But I don't remember. There might have been a throwaway line about some priest there that he knew, but I don't remember.
I feel like his only like friend was the
Bernadal or
Bernadal.
Yeah.
And Bernadal is not a young man and also only had one arm, right? Not that means that he couldn't be an engineer, but
maybe. I can't remember if that was a different priest or not, or monk. Mm. But either way, he might have.
Or he had like a shoulder injury or something.
Something. Yeah.
Again, doesn't mean he couldn't be an engineer, but just, I don't know. I don't think that he was young. So I guess Wintrow has friends, ?
We know there was another young priest in training doing stained glass with him too.
That's true.
I'm wondering if it's just one of the young people that he knows.
Yeah.
So Reyn gives a small sigh in reply to her mood, saying, I too long to be home again. And she hadn't really said anything, so that's another little hint that they are connected.
Yeah.
That they can read each other's moods quite well, and since they've been close again with that elderling connection.
Yeah, it seems like there's a little bit more to their relationship than just speaking about things.
Yeah.
And then we learned that, as per tradition of dances in Jamaillia, the first dance is done by all of the companions for the satrap. He does not get down off the dais, but he inclines his head during certain parts of the song when he should be nodding at his partner.
Yeah.
But all of the companions are dancing as though they are dancing with him to honor him.
Exactly.
And Malta thinks it's such a waste of good music, and she is ready to go dance.
Oh, yeah. So she's tapping her foot and eventually like stills it because she thinks it's a waste of good music. Like you said, she's like, okay, I can't dance to this.
Yeah, we're not even allowed to dance. Annoying.
So Reyn takes the advantage of not being able to dance yet to speak with Malta and says, I secured 2 more stone cutters. They will follow us on Ophelia. Wintrow says there are several islands in the Pirate Isles that may furnish stone for us at a reasonable cost. So he's talking about doing all these logistical things, and eventually he ends up with saying we could then transfer those workers to the excavation of the city before or after our wedding, she asked him gravely. Oh, after, he replied fervently. Do you suppose our mothers would let it be any other way? I personally doubt we shall be allowed to eat or sleep until we have endured the wedding. Endured? She asked him with raised brows. Most definitely, he says with a sigh. My sisters have been paroxysms of delight. They will meet the Queen of the Pirate Isles and your dashing brother Wintrow. Tintaglia has announced she will be there to receive us afterward, I am told. My sisters are insisting I be veiled for the wedding. They say it matters not how I display myself in Jamaillia. I must be properly modest for the traditional Reynwild ceremony. So they're kind of talking to each other about these details that I'm sure they've talked to each other about a million times, but it's for the benefit of the reader.
Yes.
So we know what kind of pomp and ceremony that they're going to have for their wedding, and that the dragon will be there, and
yes,
that they're going to have traditional veils for both the bride and the groom.
Yes. And yeah, so there's a lot to look forward to in going home that isn't just, finding the city. It's also they get to get married and they get to do all that. And Malta also has been a little bit annoyed because when Ophelia came, she got a letter from her mother that was mostly just talking about wedding plans and preparations. So she's also well aware of how things are and how it's going to be a lot. But I think she's really excited for it. But I thought what was really interesting, some of the parts that you skipped over with Reyn taking the opportunity to talk, is that Wintrow is sort of being a businessman in this, saying that they can, source stones from the Pirate Isles at a cost.
Use our quarries,
And then also he's talking about how to move the workers to the city, he would need to use those stones to replace the wood that is being used in the levees currently with stone, so that people wouldn't have to continue to watch the wood because it's in the Reynwild water, obviously breaking down really fast. So I don't know. I thought that was important, that it wasn't just random workers. It's these workers that they have to keep at the site for forever because of the wood. So yeah, lots of stuff happening. Lots of
Reyn's been planning out the future for a lot of these works, which is good. Here's kind of an overview of it.
But also, another piece of news came with the Ophelia's letters, and that is that Greg is seeing a 3 ships girl.
Yeah, and she asked, is that true, to Reyn? He and Sparse Kelter's daughter are moving in that direction. Oh, a shame. I suppose that means Aunt Althea has burned her bridges and will have to be content with Brash and Trell. They looked more than content last time I saw them. Greg Tenira would have been a more fitting match for her. Perhaps. From the way she looked at me, I suspected she thought you could do better also. She looks at everyone that way. Malta dismissed her aunt's reservations. Well...
Nosy, busybody Malta.
I mean, both of them.
Yes,
Althea does think the same. That, maybe a bit improper for my
yes. Well,
my cousin.
I don't know. I think that's what's funny to me is that Malta's like, oh, my brother should be taller. Oh, everybody's judging everybody else, what they're doing and how that's working for them. And then also is like, I can't believe my brother and aunt give me weird looks when my boyfriend touches me improperly.
Yes. Also, am I that blind to Reyn's faults? No, I can't be.
No, probably not. Now here he comes in this ridiculous clown outfit, and he's so hot.
And also, we learn a little bit about how Ophelia has been taking the news. And Greg says that she's been pretty much the same as ever and doesn't have any memories whatsoever of being a dragon. The same with Golden Down.
Yes. And Reyn says that his theory is that some of the dragons had died in the logs
Yeah.
before they were cut open. And so maybe Ophelia and the other ship had used those logs or like those planks. And so there was no living thing to like be under all the memories, but they're not really sure. And there's no way to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So just some of the ships don't have any memory, but others like
Kendry.
Kendry are really hard to like talk with at the moment. Kendry is only taking orders from Tintaglia, and it's apparently really hard for his owners to be on.
He is a bitter creature and sails only at Tintaglia's behest. And Kendry was the one that was a little bit picky about, if we're sailing into cold waters, I don't really want to go that way. Warm waters, love that. And he was like an affable kind of young man figurehead.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was the one that Tintaglia saw in Treyhog.
Yes.
A silence fell between them. Malta made a valiant effort at distracting him. I had a note from Selden as well. His handwriting is awful. He loves the Reyn wilds. Kassarik is a torment to him, however. He wants to dig immediately, and your brothers will not let him. Reyn smiled wryly. I remember being like that. And he's still very distracted, so Malta is still trying to haul him out of his reverie of thinking about, I guess, Tintaglia and Ophelia and Golden Down and what his family might have contributed to the live ships. So she tries to pull him out of that conversation and that line of thinking by talking more about Selden and Tintaglia. She thinks that he spends too much time with Tintaglia guarding the cocoons, and then she talks about those cocoons, saying that only 53 appear to be developing. Selden does not say how Tintaglia knows. Poor creature, she struggled so hard to lead them home, and so many perished along the way. She worries that not all 53 will hatch. They should have spent the whole winter cocooned and hatched in high summer. Perhaps they will hatch in late summer to make up for their late start. Perhaps. Oh, the companions are finished. Now the real dancing begins. Do not you wish for the music to begin? He teased her, feigning reluctance to rise. And then as she pulls him to his feet, he says, you only want to show off your new dress.
Mm-hmm.
Worse, I wish to flaunt my elegant partner before all these grand ladies, before I snatch him away to mirror him as mine in the distant Reyn wilds.
So they're a great match. They both love the dramatics. They both love teasing each other. And Malta loves these parties a lot more than I think Reyn does, but I think Reyn also enjoys the spectacle.
Oh, yeah.
I did want to back up really quick and just talk about the 53 dragons or cocoons. So only like 8 of them make it, right?
Something like that. We get numbers in the Rainwild Chronicles, but I don't remember how many actually hatch versus how many are on the journey.
Right. And we know that like people start wanting dragon parts because they believe that that'll cure stuff.
Right.
So yeah. So anyway, we'll get more numbers later, but it is really interesting to think about. There were thousands of serpents and 53 made it so far.
So Reyn took her hand and set his other hand to the small of her back, Jamaillian style. She had explained to Wintrow that it was the only proper way to tread this step, but she knew he would be frowning at Reyn's boldness. And they step sedately and start to dance, and the dizziness was lovely as she's being twirled around because Reyn catches her at the end. And then again they step to the beat of the drum. They flirt a bit while they're dancing here and speak about waiting for their wedding night.
They're waiting for marriage.
Yeah, waiting for marriage. And Reyn says, does a hungry man resent the preparation of the feast?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross. I don't love this. Again, I feel like for whatever reason, when this like romantic-y starts talking with specifically Malta and Reyn, I start thinking about the age gap and I'm like, ugh.
Like,
when they're just a good team and they're like having a nice PG time, I'm like, yeah, great. And then the second it starts going towards PG-13 territory, I'm like, ugh. So, yeah. It's cute, I guess.
So the dance floor is clearing around them in a great circle as they are spinning faster and faster and dancing quicker and quicker. And the murmur of the crowd told her that they were spinning so fast on these steps that her gown was now flashing its scarlet insets. She closed her eyes, trusting him to hold her in his orbit, and wondered what could ever surpass this glorious moment. Then she smiled, knowing the answer. Telling Dello about it.
So,
which is a cute little ending to it.
That is funny. It's still Malta.
Yeah.
She may have grown up and realized how silly her wants were back in the day, just 2 years ago.
Right, yeah.
But she's still Malta, and she still can't wait to rub it in Dello's face that she had this really cool experience.
And then we jump over to Wintrow's point of view, who is being like, oh, Reyn should not hold my sister that improperly.
Yeah, he's like, ugh. And then he says it's good they're getting married soon, he observes stiffly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you think that will put a stop to their dancing? Etta asked him sarcastically. So Etta is also kind of like, come on, they're a couple, that's just how it is.
He gave her a humbled smile. But also he likes to hear that sort of thing out of Etta because that's just, recalling her older spark.
Yes.
That sometimes flashes in and out. He says probably not. They're not going to ever put a stop to their dancing. Malta was born dancing, I believe. I suspect that a dozen children from now, she will still display her feelings as plainly. Oh, what a shame, Etta consoled him dryly. She was silent as the couple spun again, then asked, do all in Bingtown disdain dancing as you do? I do not disdain dancing, he answered with surprise. I was learning the basic steps and accounted graceful enough before I was sent off to be a priest. He watched Reyn and Malta a few moments. What they are doing is not that impressive. It is just that they are able to do it both swiftly and gracefully, and that they're a well-matched couple. He frowned a moment and then admitted, and that incredible dress she's wearing. Do you think you could dance like that? With practice, perhaps. A sudden thought came to him. He coupled it to the discovery of how stupid he still could be. He leaned toward her. Etta, would you care to dance? I do not know how, she replied stiffly. I could teach you. I would not be good at it. I would only humiliate myself and my partner. He leaned back in his chair and spoke softly, forcing her to listen carefully. When you fear to fail, you fear something that has not yet happened. Dancing is far less difficult than reading, especially for a woman who can run the rigging and never miss a step. He waited. Not now. Not in so public a place. She built up to admitting it, as admitting any desire was difficult for her. But someday I would like to learn to dance. And then he says, when you are ready, I will be honored to partner you. She spoke very softly as she added, and I will have a dress to surpass that one. So again, we get a cute scene here, but I've talked about it last episode too, that building up their romantic relationship just doesn't make that much sense to me. Because, I get it logically, right? I get that now they're the two people who can rely on each other, basically. They're the only ones who had their shared experience with Kenneth. But at the same time, it's not always the best to just cling to someone you're trauma bonding with. I don't know.
I don't feel that this is a romantic thing necessarily. This is how they've always been. And
kinda, except Etta is way more jealous and verbalizing it. Of no, you're gonna be amazed at what I wear, not at somebody else dancing, you know? Like,
I
I'm going to
guess.
surpass any. It feels like Wintrow can't be amazed or like be happy in another woman's presence without Etta being like, I can do that better.
Mm,
Because there was a flash of jealousy when she saw Wintrow smile and laugh with Malta, like when they first boarded or something like that.
yeah, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, a
And
month.
well, okay, but that also was before she knew that was his sister,
Yeah.
which again, I mean, maybe isn't helpful to my point, but I feel like in this moment, none of this felt flirty to
Okay.
me. This felt
Okay.
like two friends having a conversation. And yes, we know Wintrow has feelings for Etta. However, we also know he's not really acting on those feelings for Etta.
True.
And
True.
he always has been her teacher. He always has taught her things that she wouldn't have had a chance to learn.
Yeah.
And I feel like him talking about, this whole thing, they're joking about his sister and her fiance and what they're doing. And he is trying to be like, it's not that impressive. It's just because she's wearing a great dress and they're doing it elegantly.
Yeah.
And so when she says at the end, and I'll have a better dress than that, I don't see that as like a jealousy thing.
Okay.
I feel that's more like she wants to be the best at something and also is, sort of like, well, I'll have an even better dress and be able to dance because
Okay.
she probably
Yeah.
feels low self-esteem not being able to dance in this situation.
That's fair. Yeah. That's definitely fair. And it also is nice to see her admit that she wants to plan things for the future, too.
Yeah. And that she wants something in general.
Yeah. We switch points of view over to Vivacia, who
Yes.
is speaking with Ophelia.
Yes, they are docked near each other, and she talks about how Ophelia has rattled her giant game dice at her and asked if she'd like to play.
So even more important than the Bingtown gossip that Ophelia brings were her accounts of what she had seen and heard in Treyhog. The cocooning banks were far upriver, beyond the reach of a ship of her draft, but Ophelia was an adept meddler and avid listener. So Vivacia is very keen on hearing all of the gossip, not just Bingtown, but specifically dragon gossip.
Yes, she wants to know how the serpents are doing.
Mm-hmm. The news she shared with Vivacia had been bad as well as good, but knowing the fate of her serpents was a kind of peace in itself. She served her kind best by remaining in Jamaillia for now, but the suspense had been difficult to endure. Ophelia had understood her thirst for information about the serpents. Since she had arrived in Jamaillia City, her detailed accounts had been a great comfort to Vivacia. Still, she shook her head at Ophelia's dice box. Althea seemed to believe that you cheated when she played with you, she observed lightly. Oh, well, that's Althea. Nice girl, but a bit suspicious. Not the best judgment in the world either. After all, she chose that renegade Trell when she could have had my Greg. Vivacia laughed softly. I don't think your Greg ever had much of a chance. I rather suspect that renegade Trell was chosen for her by Ephraim Vestrit a number of years ago. At Ophelia's affronted expression, she added kindly, but Greg doesn't seem to have missed her for long. And Ophelia nods, and it's like, yep, humans have to be pragmatic about these things. And she praises Eki as a fine girl who knows how to seize life and make something of it.
And how Eki reminds her of her first captain.
Mm-hmm.
And then also talks about how Eki told Greg, quote, don't expect me to stay ashore and have babies for you, she told him, right here on my foredeck. My children are going to be born on this ship, she said to him. And you know what Greg said? Yes, dear. Meek as milk. I think he knows he'd better get to it if he's going to have a family. Humans only have so much time, you know.
Ophelia.
So meddlesome and nosy.
Yes.
But also I'm sure she loves Eki for that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then Jack joins them, saying, yeah, that's why we have to cram so much living into those years. And Jack is dressed in a long skirt, barefoot, and she's wearing perfume as well. Evening, ladies, she greeted them. Ophelia, of course, is very excited that Jack seems to have been up at the dancing and wants to know all about it. because, as Vivacia said, she's an avid listener and meddler.
Yes. And a seasoned meddler.
Yes, exactly. Did you see the Satrap's palace? Tell us about it. So we get a description of the Satrap's palace, of how it's all lit up and everything is super festive and there's a bunch of dancing. The men were handsome and the dancing lively, and they were cooking whole pigs on spits, and keg after keg of beer did they broach. It was as good a feasting as I've ever seen in any town. Still and all, I'm ready to sail tomorrow. Jamaillia is a dirty place, for all of its fine houses. I'll be glad to get out on the water again, and gladder still to see Divvytown. I knew it was my home port that first time I saw it. The pirate town, sauce save us all. Does someone wait there for you, dearie? Ophelia asked. Jack laughed aloud. They all wait for me. They just don't know it yet. Ophelia laughs, of course, because she loves that kind of joke.
Oh, yeah. And I find that really interesting that Jack is saying that her home is Divvytown, that she's excited to make Divvytown her own home, especially because she does stay with Paragon later, right? Like, she's part of Paragon's crew.
I don't remember. I didn't think so.
I guess I assumed, if only because I thought Althea and Brashen come to visit Lord Golden, and then that's when Jack comes.
I thought that was not Althea and Brashen that came visited. I thought that was Selden on board as part of the representatives to the Six Duchies. And I don't know whether that was on a live ship or not.
Okay. We'll have to look for it next time. I know Jack does come back.
Yes.
To see Amber. I just don't know who she's with.
Right. Well, Vivacia throughout all of this has been very, very quiet. And Ophelia kind of nudges her, says, hey, do you miss your Wintrow? He'll be back soon enough. And she shakes out of her reverie and says that, I wasn't thinking about Wintrow. Sometimes it's a pleasure just to be in your own thoughts. I was looking at the sky and recalling. The higher you fly, the more stars there are. There are stars up there that I will never see again. It didn't matter to me when the heavens still belonged to me, but now I feel it as a loss. Ophelia says you're young, you're going to find a lot of things like that in your life. No sense in dwelling on them. And Vivacia's like, well, my life is a live ship. Naomi almost envy you because you recall nothing of those previous days, so you must miss nothing.
Right.
And Ophelia says, I recall a lot, my dear. Just because my memories have sails instead of wings, don't you discount them. And my life is nothing for you to disdain, I might add, nor your own. You could take a lesson from my Greg. Don't go mooning after the stars when the wide sea is all around you. It's a sky of its own, With just as many stars, Jack observed. Good night, ladies, I'm for my bunk. And Ophelia... As Jack is walking away, Ophelia shakes her head and says, mark my words, she'll regret it if she doesn't settle down soon. Somehow I doubt it, Vivacia replied. So at the same time that Ophelia's like, yeah, you go, Jack, make those jokes about all the men waiting for you.
Yeah, get
as soon
it, girl.
as she walks away, she needs to get married.
Yeah, it's back to old matron.
Yes.
Her time is running short. She needs to get married.
Settle down soon.
Ugh.
But Vivacia is smiling at all of those kind of thoughts coming together and says, Jack is too busy living and she won't waste time on regrets, and neither shall I.
And that's the end of the chapter.
That is the end of the chapter. So we see Vivacia trying to get beyond missing her dragon self because she thinks of the serpents as her serpents still, because she was there guiding them, doing the best that she could as Bolt during that time.
Yeah.
And now she's here kind of not incredibly sad, but definitely reminiscing and missing her dragon memories in life, and kind of at the end here decides, well, there's no use having those regrets if it'll never happen. I'll enjoy what I have now.
Right.
Which I think is very, very important for her to be happy for the next, what is it, like 30 years before they actually do get changed into dragons?
Yes. Yeah, just to sort of take every day as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, what a What an interesting chapter. Again, like the last couple chapters have been interesting because it's kind of the end of the main plot, and now we get all the wrap up to see where we leave all the
Yeah.
characters.
And here's where they are a month later. And
yeah. So
here's what they're going to get up to. And
so there's these time skips, and then like we were talking before, like weird kind of friendships or acquaintances that we didn't see develop between like Malta and Etta, or
Right.
you know the Wintrow and Malta kind of falling back into their brother and sister routines.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, you know, I'm the disappointed older brother of you should be more serious, Malta.
Mm-hmm.
And there's these little like relationships like that just I kind of miss. I want to see a little bit more build up. It just seems kind of abrupt. And I think that's adding to the sense of like, oh, it doesn't quite feel like this character. It doesn't quite feel like that character that we're encountering.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the ending of this book is less satisfying. Although it's hard because it's a lot of happily ever after, right?
Right.
Which maybe that's why it feels so weird in the realm of the Elderlings. That we have a story that we're following and almost every single person has a good ending and something positive has happened.
All the protagonists or people that we would want to do well have a good ending, right? There's no protagonist that is not happy. I mean, you can argue about Althea's, but
yeah,
if she doesn't have the magical intervention, you know, ideally she would be a better person in the long run, but not immediately. So it's kind of like a magical
Band-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. But besides that kind of question, who doesn't have a relatively happy ending that we were rooting for, you know?
Yeah.
It's all of these side characters and things that are just mentioned of like, oh, there's tragedy and these people died or they lost these places.
Right. Which I guess
we don't care about them.
Yeah. Which feels a little silly to be then disappointed about that because we did want them to have happy endings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it like, I don't know. It's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
Not normal. And then we have to go back to Fitz who gets good bits of life.
Hey, at the end of this next trilogy, it's kind of like his happy ending, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
His story doesn't end, but that's the happiest he's going to be.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, just a thought that I had of like, yeah, this is sort of the wrap up of everybody getting a good ending.
Right.
Everybody that's left.
Yeah. Now there's only 3 episodes left of this book.
Yeah.
So
few more loose ends to tie up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for tuning into this episode and listening along to this chapter. If you have thoughts on the chapter or the book so far or the chapters ahead or, you know, the books in the past, let us know at isfitzhappy@gmail.com. Or you can go to our website, isfitzhappy.com or isfitzhappy.podbean.com, either one. Get you to the same place. And you can find links on there to all of our other social medias or places to listen to our podcast. We are at isfitzhappy on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, Blue Sky, Threads. And I think that's it. Just let us know what you got going on in your life. Ask us any questions you might have, and we'll read them off here.
Yeah, we always look forward to hearing from you. All right. We have an email that we'd like to talk about in our favorite section, which is bringing up what you guys brought to us. And the email that we're going to be talking about today is from a listener named Anna.
Yes. Thank you, Anna, for sending this in. This is about our last episode. 2 episodes ago. Sorry.
Yeah.
Episode 243.
Nope.
Yes. So that was probably chapter 36.
Right.
Yes. Okay. I'm doing that from memory and checking file names here. So Anna wants to talk about Brashen and how they're Team Brashen until the end. I love the moment in episode 243 when Brashen recognizes the community he has built and kind of realizes he has built a home. I also love that this man who was ostracized by his family for shirking the responsibility he was born into now has a responsibility to this found family, and it is a responsibility he wants to rise to. And obviously, Ephraim has taught Brashen the skill of recognizing and valuing people and
Right.
training them up. So I'll take that a paragraph at a time, and I kind of want to talk about that, how that is something very important for his character development.
Yeah. It's not only sort of getting over what has happened in the past. I say that knowing that's a little bit callous of an explanation, but that is something that he's been struggling with, that he was kicked out of a trader family, that he messed up, he ruined his own life, he'll never amount to anything. And then realizing he actually hasn't been thinking like that for a while now. And not only that, but he is realizing that he does have family, and it's the people on his ship that he cares about that he wants to give a better life to.
Right. It's such a step in favor of his self-esteem as well, because a lot of it beforehand was that he wasn't worthy, like you were saying,
Yeah.
for all this. And now that he does find himself worthy and wants to rise to the occasion is a great conclusion for him there. And Anna goes on saying that they love most that he steps up to that responsibility, knowing and assuming that it will mean that he and Althea won't be able to be together in the way that he imagined.
Yeah. I think that detail is also really important to Brashen and
Yeah.
being Team Brashen for Althea, that I really enjoy seeing a love story where we don't see either party feeling the need to make themselves smaller for the other.
Right.
So it's not just about Althea wanting to captain her own ship and wanting to do all these things with her ship and allowing her to do that, so to speak, but it's also allowing himself to go after what he wants, even if that means that their relationship won't be the way he wants it to be.
Yeah. So Anna says instead of pressuring her to give up on her dreams, he accepts that their life together won't be what he had imagined, and he wants that anyways. He wants whatever life that they can have together, and that is love. And that is what Greg couldn't understand, and why I will always be Tame Brashen.
Yes.
They lift each other up and want each other to succeed, and will find a way to be together all the while. Anna is appreciating going through this series once more because they'd only read it once, and is liking the second closer look at the love story.
Yeah. I think it is a really nice story. I think, which is why last chapter, when Brashen is feeling hurt that Althea won't sleep with him and what he thinks is the last night, felt so bad to me.
Yeah.
Because I do have a pretty overall positive view of Brashen, and I like the way that Brashen and Althea's relationship works, and how they get, I don't know, just interact with each other, that it was really disappointing when it wasn't that, I guess. So, but I do agree with Anna talking about how, they, like, the love that they have is really important and strong because they're recognizing that, like, they want each other to succeed.
Right. Yeah. Anna does say at near the end here that Greg wanted a spunky wife who towed the line but ultimately didn't cross it. In referring to, like, Althea and Brashen found somebody who
Yes.
would always support each other. And there, I have to disagree with. I think Greg could have been what Althea wanted, but Althea was in love with Brashen the whole time.
Yeah.
Because the way that Eki is with Greg, that's what Althea kind of wanted too.
Yeah, but I think the difference
Eki is more family oriented, I will say. Just
Yeah.
like, yeah, we are going to have kids and we are going to have a family. I'm just sailing with you. Althea want to be like, I'm captain my own ship. We're doing cool stuff. Maybe we'll have a family.
Yeah, I feel like, it's like it's an independence thing, sort of, but I don't want to say that Eki isn't independent. She's
Right.
definitely independent. I just think that Althea didn't want to have to tell her partner what to do and how to be a good partner to her.
Right.
Eki doesn't seem to mind. She's laying it out front. She's saying, this is what I expect from you, and this is how it's going to be. So take it or leave it. And that's great. It's just not who Althea is. I feel like Althea a little bit wants that mutual, like, I'm not forcing you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you. I don't know. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I want you to want what I want. And
I agree with you. And that's why, like, it is better that they ended up the way they did.
Yes.
But I'm saying, like, I don't think Greg would have been that bad for Althea. I will stay on that.
I disagree, because I think they weren't who each other needed. I think he could be progressive more with Eki, because Eki is more upfront and would never tolerate less, whereas Althea would just let it bother her forever and then, like, stack up grievances. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I feel like it wouldn't have worked long term just because of who each other are when they're with each other. I think that's a big thing too. Is that, like, they weren't a good match. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe they could have been, if Althea would have sucked it up.
Who knows? But either way, it is nice to see Brashen and Althea's love story kind of fully unfold, even if we are frustrated at some of the ending choices that were made about it. It is still a great story, and they do really get one another quite well.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Anna, and thanks to everybody else who writes in. We love hearing from you, and can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about next week.